You can. All right. Good afternoon. Good afternoon, everyone joining us on YouTube, Facebook, MIXLR, via the website. This is Undaunted Seizing Opportunities. This is our second edition of this youth summit. And the last session as well was very insightful. We learned a lot of things. We learned about never letting crisis go to waste. We also learned that we should hone our skill, hone our capacity, and tough times don't last, but tough people do. So this session now we are talking about seizing opportunities, seizing opportunities. And with us, we have of our panelists are two distinguished professionals in no particular order. We have Mr. Folajomi Adegbulugbe. He's the CEO of Pristine Capital. Mr. Fola, you're welcome. Thank
Thank
you
you
for.
very much.
All right. And we also have our distinguished Dr. Yele Okereni. He's the CEO of Precise Financial Services. Dr. Yele, you're very welcome, sir.
With all pleasure. Thank you very, very much.
Thank you. And I'll be the moderator for this session. And my name is Benjamin Ekwabelam. And before we go into the business of the day, I just want to do a recap of how the program will flow for our viewers watching. So we have two speakers, and they will each speak for 15 minutes. They'll give us their insights from their experience, and then we go into questions and answers. And question and answers, please keep your questions coming. You can send your questions via YouTube, Facebook, MIXLR, and all the whole channels available to listen on. And then we take a final word from the two panelists, and then we wrap it up for the afternoon. So once again, good afternoon, everyone. And now we go straight into business, right? So Mr. Folajomi, we're looking at seizing opportunities. So please, you have the floor. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Folajomi Adegbulugbe. I'm the CEO of Pristine Capital, like our host said. before starting Pristine Capital last year, and probably late 2018, when we started the works to start a private equity firm. I'd run businesses, and I just about to end my master's degree program in Boston, in the United States of America. So I have a master's degree in international business and finance. Over the years, I've also done businesses in consumer goods and consumer science services sector, restaurants. I own a restaurant. Also done events around food, and also had a game center back in the day. With Pristine Capital, what we're trying to do is to invest in small, medium enterprises. Usually, private equity firms are focused on larger play as opposed to venture capital. But then one of the interesting things about what we're trying to do is to focus on small, medium enterprises, which is kind of like a little bit off of the playbook of a normal private equity firm. And so the idea was to give the opportunity to small, medium enterprises to be able to access finance, to be able to get advisory, to be able to get strategy and some form of experience through our partners in the firm. And with that, they can be able to leverage experience, leverage capital, and be able to grow. And as time goes on, we intend to exit, of course. So today's topic is seizing opportunities, and I would just like to, go again and just talk about, again, from my experience and from what we're doing, in Pristine Capital, and some of the things that I've also learned. I'd just like to just, talk about how you can definitely seize opportunities. And again, I like that term, undaunted. Undaunted is basically being unafraid, being unmoved, is being unchallenged, as it were. And that's just really key as business people, as investors, and as Christians, right? You want to be undaunted because you know who is in you is greater than who is in the world, right? And again, it works again in business. You'd often want to take a position where you move with not more faith, with the knowing a consciousness of what is inside you, and using that perspective to go into opportunities, to go into taking up challenges, as it were. So again, I'm sorry that I jumped straight in. I wanted to say thank you to the team for this opportunity. And I know it's never too late to, thank the team again for this opportunity to speak. So thank you for this opportunity. I would have said all protocols observed, but I'm the first speaker. And yeah, so I'll go back again to where I was, and I hope I haven't, distorted our line of thought. So straight again, back to where I was. One of the kingdom principles I like is the principle of sowing and reaping, right? Sowing and reaping is excellent. And Ecclesiastes chapter 3, verse 1 and 2, it clearly just says it right there that there is a season for everything, right? And under the sun, and there's a time for every activity. A time to be born, a time to die, and a time to plant, and a time to uproot. Literally, there's a time to sow, there's a time to reap. There's a time to invest, and there's a time to get rewards. And that's exactly how it's going to be. I mean, all over the world, that's how it is in terms of business. You have to invest something to make some money. It can be your skill, it could be your money, it could be your talent, it could be so many things, but the principle is the same. You invest, and after some time changes, there's a flow. It could be a month, it could be 2 months, it could be 3 months, you expect a return. And that's how it is all across in terms of business and investing. So again, not to paint a rosy picture, or not to make it seem like it's often just like, you plant, you sow. I mean, you sow, you reap, right? From my experience, I remember the first business I had, it was called Game Point. It was a game center, and I'd seen a problem. There was definitely a problem. I thought that people wanted to be social, people wanted to go out there and play games. If you remember a couple of years back, everywhere there was PS2, PS3s. People wanted to play games. People wanted to be part of this new growing teenage years, or adulthood where you play game, you challenge each other and things like that. And so I saw an opportunity and I said, oh, you know what? If I have a center where there are a couple of games and then I can bring that together and we all play together, I could make some money, right? And I could be solving the problem those that don't have games who want to play. And that was just straight, direct. This that I decided to work towards trying to achieve that. Used my personal assets, that is my console, my TV, to try to build that. And I was able to get a space in a supermarket where I thought there would be a flow of people. And although the business started, after just a couple of days, it definitely failed, right? It was hard to make revenue. The first couple of days, I think I made about 4,000 naira, and then just right after that, there was almost no sale. Within 2 weeks, it was over. And then right after that, I think I just sold my consoles and then I moved into university. And that was just pre-university days. Again, sometimes you sow, sometimes the reward won't come out. But then again, that's where the principle of Undaunted comes out from. You need to know who is in you is greater than who is in the world. And through that, I was able to, sum up some more courage and say, you know what, I'll look for another problem and then I'll solve another problem. And that's exactly what happened. So again, the first thing I would like us to get from this, from seizing opportunities is when there's an opportunity, even if it fails, you can still succeed. What I didn't mention to you was, even though that particular model, that is, I was going to try to let people come to a particular center and buy and play games and I'll get some revenue, didn't work. Another model worked for me in the short run. I was able to take my consoles and sell them. And then I was able to also do a leasing program where people could rent for a longer period, for like a month, and take my consoles. And eventually I just exited the business, right? And so again, one failed, but again, in the spirit of not letting down, not feeling depressed, not feeling like you've lost, still being undaunted, I went ahead and found a different solution. Again, it works differently for different people. And that's the principle of sowing and reaping. You sow, you're definitely going to reap more than you've sown. So one of the things that I also kind of like thought about was what people are going to be listening to this. There's going to definitely be a group, a diverse set of people who want to invest or who are going to be investing later in the future, people who are in business and want to get some kind of insights into how do I seize opportunities, and then also people who are even just working, right? And so again, I started thinking about and saying, what are the things that we think about in Pristine Capital when we want to make an investment? What are things that I think about when I want to make an investment, or when I see an opportunity? How do I treat opportunities when they do come? Again, seizing opportunities is about, first of all, finding a problem. There isn't opportunity where there isn't problem, and problems always vary. So you can never seize an opportunity where there is no problem. You seize opportunity where there's a problem. There could be problem anywhere in your workplace. There could be problems in your household. There could be problems that you could find solutions for. In wherever it is, there could be problems that you would find where you could solve, right? So again, what investors look for in a business is exactly what businesses should be doing in the first place. I hope I'm making some sense. What I'm trying to say is that if I'm going to be investing in a business, it has to be a good business. So when I'm going to be telling you a couple of principles of some things that investors are looking at, these are the principles that if you're running a business, you should also be following, right? Again, these are same principles that if you are working under an employer or if you're working for a firm or an organization, and almost always going to be the same principle you should follow just generally in terms of your disposition towards finding a problem or towards seizing opportunities. So I'll just go straight into it. There are about 3 of them that I would focus on, and there are so many, and there's so many questions that you'd ask before going into an investment. I mean, you look at financials, you look at structure, you look at so many things. But then most of the time, it's always back to just a couple of things that are like key. Yeah. So the first one of them is the problem. What problem exactly are you trying to solve? How big is the problem, right? And again, a small problem will be solved in such a way that it makes big money. So a big problem is relative, right? It doesn't mean that, for example, someone is solving, debt, or someone finds the cure for COVID now. That's a big problem. But then again, someone else solves the problem for how to get food across to so many people out there who don't have food. That's also a big problem. So again, big problems are relative, and it's there are a couple of questions that come around that. Again, there's no value when there's no problem. if I have food already and you're giving me more food, yes, I can store them, but that isn't exactly in terms of, oh, you give me food, I have to eat now. You're not giving me value right now. Again, in economics, there is the marginal utility, where at some point, after you get to a point, the utility or the satisfaction you derive from what you are given starts to decline. And so you don't want to get to that point. What you're trying to do is, there's a problem, you're giving satisfaction to a particular point, right? And that's where reinvention comes in. You start to see the problem. When you solve a problem, you see problems come in a new light, and people grow. You have to grow as your business grows. Again, some of the questions that we ask is, does this business solve a problem? What's the value proposition? What is the business model? How do they plan to make money? That's another thing that you need to critically look at. Even though there's a problem, you don't want to solve a problem and not, generate some form of revenue. Again, that is how you have something valuable, because there's so many ways to solve a problem. Finding the right way to solve it and that people will pay for is very. One thing you can do is do a survey, ask questions, do a closed group. And one of the things that I love is something I call a focus group, where I ask people questions and then try to understand this. And I do that with a lot of people. And that's just before I even eventually probably do a survey to expand on where it is. Again, that gives you a mindset of what the problem is like. How can you solve that problem? Another thing we look at is definitely the team. Who is solving the problem? And I've heard a lot of in circles of investors saying that they don't invest in businesses, they invest in people. What does that mean? Someone can have a very awesome idea and is just not a good person. It's just not someone who operates in the light of, in good lights, right? Who has some set of character, some set of traits, honesty, integrity, who has excellence. These are kind of like the key things. Again, in the Undaunted passage that I saw, I think 2 Corinthians chapter 4, there was a part that talked about some of the key principles, some principles that Jesus was saying about how you could be undaunted, right? And again, you want excellence. You want someone who has integrity, who is honest, who is going to treat the business as huge as they will treat so many other things. So again, that's something that we need to develop, especially in our culture in Nigeria. A lot of people like privacy. A lot of people don't like revealing things, and then investors want to see, what the character of someone is. And to find character of someone depends on how the culture of the business is. Again, we want to look at why are you solving the problem with? Who is your financial person? How do you plan to work around money? How do you plan to, when you employ people, how would you treat them? And things like that. The last one is, what are your plans, your present, your future? Again, quickly, it's that same thing of we need some form of documentation. We can't know the future if you don't know what your past is like or what your present is. Again, a lot of businesses don't write down how much they make every day, how much they make every month. It's like some things that right off the bat you should be doing. Every single day recording, today this is what the sales was like, this is what expenses were, and things like that. That even gives you a base, a foundation for the future in terms of even character. I can't judge your character if I can't see what your past was like. I can't judge your character if I can't see your present is like. And that's exactly what you should do as a business person. You should be documenting. You should be able to use that documentation to know what your strategy is. When we do, because we've done a couple of free advice and free strategies for a couple of companies, this is some of the things that we look at as well. It's like, okay, can we get some data so we can use it to solve the problem? Again, I think some of these principles are just the things that we look at generally and try to use when we're looking at solving problems, when we're looking at investing in a business, and also when we're trying to look at starting a business. I think my time is about to come up. And then just in conclusion, just to go over it again, I want to let you know that, again, there's a time for everything, and there's a time to invest and a time to not invest. There's a time to actually work and make money. There's a time to build your character up. Over the years, that's exactly what I've done in terms of doing business in over like almost 7 or 8 years. Build character, build this thing. So now when I go to investors to invest in pristine capital so that we can fund this thing, it's the same kind of mentality that comes back is in terms of, I've done this before and I'm sure I can do this in the future because of what I've done in the past. And that gives them a basis of things that they can expect. Then second, one thing when you're looking at is the problem and what is your mission, what is your vision. The second thing is the team, yourself, your character, honesty, honor, integrity. And then the last thing is, what are your plans? The documentary, what has the past been? What do you intend to do in the future? And I think some of this will just really help an investor, a business person, and also, again, slightly someone who is working for an employer. Thank you
Wow,
very much.
that was powerful. That was powerful. I learned what kind of problem are you solving? How do you make the money from the problem is also very important as
Yeah.
well. Your capacity as a team, what kind of capacity do you have the capacity to actually solve and handle the opportunities and the plans, documentations is really, really insightful. So we just go straight to Dr. Yele, and he will give us his own viewpoint on seizing opportunities. Dr. Yele, sir, you have the floor.
Well, thank you very much, Benjamin. And I listened very carefully to the very insightful presentation as well. So thank you for inviting me to this
Thank you.
session. And I'm hoping that I have anything good to say, because I'm listening to the very brilliant conversation. I'm like, what else should I say? And I really don't want to repeat anything that has been said. So what I would rather do is go a little bit more operational in it, and maybe, if the time permits, share one or two experiences that I've had. But so if we take a look at what the Bible tells us in Romans in chapter 12, and this is very interesting because this is a Christian engagement. Everything has to fall back to exactly how Christ wants us to look at it. So if we look at Romans chapter 12 and verse 2, it says, "And be not conformed to this world, but be ye transformed." And I want us to note those words: transformed by the renewing of your mind. Transformed by the renewing of your mind, that you may prove what is that good and acceptable and perfect will of God. Now, that's interesting. So it talks about transformation, and the transformation only comes from the renewing of our minds. So when we look at the situation and looking at the theme of this engagement, Undaunted, looking at the challenges today, nobody running away from the challenges. It doesn't matter what Donald Trump thinks. The truth of the matter is that there is a problem, and uh, it's either we want to face it or we want to avoid it. Life, I won't say will never be the same again, but it's going to take a very reasonably long time for us to go back to the way we used to do things before the COVID challenges came. And so there are two ways we can react to this. We can get very angry with the world for allowing this to happen, and we can decide to play the blame game, blame China, blame everyone, blame the president of Nigeria, blame our pastors for not being prophets to have forewarned us, blame our parents for not having given back to us in the US. And that's why we are here in Nigeria, and that's why we are poor. We can choose to do all those. We can also choose to accept what is on the table and decide to respond appropriately. And I want to say that for anybody who wants to continue to either play the blame game or pretend that nothing has happened, I think that's extremely dangerous. So I think the very first thing we have to know in this is that we have to accept that change has come, and that change is going to be with us for a while. And so the only thing to do, it doesn't matter whether we like it or not, is to respond appropriately to it. And so I say, under the circumstances, do not complain, and do not just sit and wish that, oh, I wish this pandemic never happened. Why can't we just return to the good old days? It's a waste of your time. It's not going to help. It doesn't produce anything. The thing is, this has happened. And when this kind of things happen, I want to say something that I think might also be a word on marble at the end of the day. Whenever you see this kind of things happen, two things always happen. It brings down hegemonies, and it establishes new hegemonies. What that means is that whenever you have a change of this magnitude, certain establishments, certain major powers will come down, and you have new powers. So for those who are incumbents, this is the challenge. For people who have made a lot of money, who have made a lot of influence, who have a lot of power, going by the current status quo, they will not be very happy that this is happening, because there's a very great possibility that this is going to distort everything they've built. But the beauty is that for those who are upcoming, you can decide that you are going to ride on the waves and become the new champion. And this is the truth of the matter. I may share some experience here. And it's very interesting that when the incumbent champions, one of the things that scholars have seen about incumbents, and we can take a look at so many companies which we can use case studies. I mean, I read a very interesting book written by Lou Gessner. It was a story of IBM, and the book says, the title is Who Says Elephants Can't Dance? So what happens is that scholars have understood that when incumbents, every time they try to look at the future, when they try to, like if you are driving, when they look at their windscreen, actually they do not know that what they are seeing is the mirror. So what happens is that when incumbents try to look at the future, what they see is the past. So incumbents would actually prefer that the status quo remains, because it makes them very comfortable. They are very powerful, they are rich. But for challengers can actually see the future in a different manner, and sometimes in a better manner. And if you look at what I'm in technology business, and I've led the company that I currently work for, Precise Financial Systems. I've led the company for over 26 years. So we've seen quite a few ups and downs in life. When you see challengers, the way challengers work the mindset is completely different. And that's why when people talk about disruptive technology, a lot of times what people do not understand about disruptive technology, particularly because there's a lot of buzz in technology space today, and everybody says I'm doing something disruptive. I mean, which is good to say, is very beautiful for the optics. But a good number of them have not really understood the meaning of disruptive technology. Because actually what disruptive technology is a technology that is initially derided. When somebody comes up with a disruptive technology, the incumbents will always say, don't mind him, it's a rubber browser, it's never going to work. How can somebody bring this? And we can take a look at what happened. What happened to Polaroid? What happened to Kodak? When these technologies were coming, and somebody says digital camera, actually, you'll be very surprised to see that the first digital camera was developed by Kodak themselves. But as far as they were concerned, the business of Kodak was making money from selling reusables, films. And so when somebody comes with a digital camera where you don't have to buy films, Kodak says it's not going to work. Oh, don't mind them. It's a fly-by-night operator. But look at what has happened to them today. The same thing is going to happen to so many companies. My company, for several years, have been challengers to major multinational companies. And when we will come with our ideas, all these multinational companies start laughing at us. They start asking us questions. Where have you seen this happen before? Look, have you ever seen it happen before? My friend, go and sit down. But guess what? With tenacity, we have defeated every single multinational company that operates in the space that we operate. Therefore, and I tell all my colleagues this in the office, that listen, the mentality that we had when we were challengers, because as a challenger, what you're hoping for is let the system break down. You don't mind the system breaking down because you believe that when the system breaks down, you will benefit from it. But then when we also became incumbents, I always tell my colleagues that listen, our mentality has to change, because the mentality of an incumbents want stability. Challengers want everything to break down. However, smart incumbents must be prepared for making things to break down and actually, hopefully, trying to make them break down. And therefore, everybody, I don't care what we are doing, either we are students or we are workers or we are business owners or whatever we are doing, we need to know that we need to have that transformation of our minds to learn to do things very, very differently. And so one of the things I would say to do is this is the right time to build new things. And I would say build new things because I'm looking at my time in 3 dimensions. Build new things, new products, and products or services. The situation today, when we start doing, the lockdowns, and the truth of it, well, the lockdowns have been relaxed. But for example, if you are an event planner, you and I know that for a reasonable time, the chances of having large events is not going to happen. So you need to begin to think of new things. If you are selling Ashwebi, you and who's going to buy it? Who's going to have parties today? You need to begin to think of what else you can do. Perhaps that is tangential to what you are currently doing or completely radically different. You need to be able to do that. So you are building new products. Then one other thing that I say, one of the challenges I see, particularly with the Black world, is that we are very heavily dependent on natural resources. And it's a very, very big problem. We actually have the natural resources and allow other people, foreigners, to come and mine the natural resources for us, and then we just collect the rent on it. Now, that's a real big challenge for us. We have to learn that actually, and we can see it. If you take a look at pretty much everything, even oil that we depend on in Nigeria, the value of oil is not in the crude. The value of oil is in the refined products. And the refined products only come from knowledge. And so I say that it's very important for anyone that wants to move forward, that wants to become undaunted, to learn new things. So it's a time for new knowledge. So it's that time when you probably want to say, should I go back to, should I learn something new? Should I have another degree? Should I learn? I mean, well, again, one of the things we have to also understand is that even education itself is not likely going to return to the way it used to be. And I just want to quickly say something here about education. And I think Ade actually had spoken about it tangentially when he was talking about value. One of the things people have tried to answer is who actually creates more value? Is it a professor, a university professor, or a basketball player? And if you ask that question, majority of the people will, oh yes, the university professor creates a lot more value. But then on the other hand, who makes more money? Is it the university professor that makes more money or the basketball player? Of course, your guess is as good as mine. The basketball player earns a lot more money than a professor can earn. Why? If you really understand and unpack why, you realize that the reason why is that a university professor is limited to standing in a class and speaking to an audience of, depending on the kind of school it is, might be 200 people at a time. That's all that can pay for his time for that time. But when the basketball game is going on, 30 million people might be watching the basketball game. So the power of television, the power of media makes the value of something that seemed to be less valuable to suddenly attract a lot more money. Therefore, education itself is to change and begin to understand that there's a need for professors, teachers, or anybody that has any knowledge to see how I might be able to digitize my knowledge so that the knowledge might become pervasive and might become viral, and perhaps it can create new value. And what I'm saying here is that for those who want to go into education or to learn new things, today pretty much a lot of the curriculum in MIT Harvard is available online. Please find time to learn something new because indeed, we may not like to believe this particularly in Africa, but actually the way everything is going, knowledge is actually power. And then the thing I say you need to build new things is new relationships. You see, the truth of the matter is that there's a maxim that nobody really cares how much you know until they know how much you care. So you see that there is a difference between the head and the heart. Actually, what happens and what determines success at the end of the day, like Ade actually mentioned, and I like it, are relationships. We've seen very many brilliant people who don't really amount to anything. And we've seen people who are considered less brilliant, but because they were people persons, they have a lot of achievements. So I think each and every one of us need to think of developing relationships. And when I talk about relationships, let us define relationships that we know are likely to improve our lot in the future. And of course, at this particular point in time, I will say it is a time for reflection. It's a time to look at what we did in the past that didn't quite work well. It's a time to look at some of the things we tried to do in the past that we didn't quite succeed and ask ourselves that what can we do better? One of the things I would say is that you see, people say data is important. Data is necessary, and it is true. But I say data is cheap, but insight is supreme. It's a very important time for us to use reasonable data to come up with insights and directions. Thank you very much.
Wow, that is extremely powerful. Insight is insight is the key. New relationships, building new things. This is a time for us to build new things. Transformation of our minds. Let's look at products and services. It's also very interesting that this time of opportunities, a lot of hegemonies are coming down and new ones are coming up, and it's a time to plug in appropriately. So we go straight into questions and answers. I have two questions prepared, and then there are other questions coming in from our viewers on YouTube, Facebook, and the like. So my first question goes to Dr. Yeli. Quickly, you mentioned that new hegemonies are coming up and old powers come down, and you pivoted to a very critical part where you said talked about your company as being a challenge and now being an established player. Now, this is the question. A few years back, there was this tailor. She used to make dresses for the wife of Prince Williams. And when it became popular that Prince Williams was going to marry her, her dresses were very good. And then a lot of people asked her, "Who is your tailor?" And then she told them, "This is my tailor." It was very small shop and all. And then orders started to come in. A lot of people started to give her orders and orders. And within 6 to 9 months, her business collapsed. Why? Because she could not handle the, the growth that came with such opportunities. So my question is this: how or what should SMEs or companies or people in the business sector put in place to help them manage the growth that will come with these opportunities? So that's the question.
Wow, that's a powerful one, Benjamin. I think, well, I'm sure Fola would like to probably take a stab at that question as well. Because you see, in truth, um, you know, hunger can kill. If the body doesn't have food, the body can die, which is what we say. Oh, businesses will die because they don't have business. They don't have customers. But actually also, overfeeding can also kill. And the reason why overfeeding can kill, I mean, the biology is very straightforward. If you try to put too much pressure on the entire alimentary canal and you keep pumping things, that the alimentary canal will burst. If you go into the bloodstream, invariably the patient will die. And this is the same thing that happens in businesses. It's about capacity. If a business is unable, and this is one of the challenges we see in Africa too, it's not able to scale. And I know people like Fola are very, very interested in, scaling businesses. So if a business is unable to scale, then it becomes a challenge. And that, so you gave some light into one of the things I spoke about in relationships. So this tailor, because of your relationship, suddenly found a boom. But the question is, she wasn't prepared and she couldn't scale. I can also tell you some other stories. If you go look at the stories of some companies like Oracle as well. When Oracle was a startup, they had only 4 employees at a time. But they were able to quickly scale for the opportunity. So what are one of the challenges I see? And we need to change our mindsets as Black people. If you, most of us, if you went to a tailor or a carpenter today and you showed them a shelf, a carpenter a shelf, come from wherever, maybe China, maybe Italy or London, and you say, "Can you build a shelf like this for me?" If it's a good carpenter, I'd like to be able to recreate one that looks exactly like that, and you might be very happy. But guess where the challenge is? When you say there's a contract from a school, we need 1,000 units of this thing. The guy will probably never be able to produce any that is as good. And that is where we need to learn that sometimes, as business people, or as leaders, we have to understand that I am because you are. So we need to learn to invest in people. We need to learn to invest in structure. We need to learn to invest in infrastructure. Thank you.
Fala, would you like to take a bite out of that? You're muted, please.
Okay, so like you said, again, same set of things is you need to invest in people, you need to invest in systems. Again, one of the things when I mentioned, I said plans, right? That's exactly where plans come in. You stand the tailor in one position where she stood and was making awesome dresses for the prince, right? Where she stood was a plan to always be at the luxury, or was a plan to be all markets. If she'd planned correctly, she would know which market she's targeting. Another thing that I think people need to learn is the ability to say no. At some point, you need to understand that not all business is for you. Not all types of money is for you. Not everyone that wants to invest, you collect money from. Not everyone that says, I can help you, really can help you. Sometimes you say, no, thank you. And be as nice and as polite with integrity, with honesty, everything, do that. And I think just that key part of planning and being able to understand, okay, in the next couple of this thing, I might be able to receive so amount of order. It's operations management, or understanding your operation plan and being just directly able to take in as much as you can and give out. And then you can always postpone orders and say, okay, you know what? In the future, I'll take more orders. And I see a lot of people do that a lot, especially tailors and stuff. They say, okay, I have a calendar. I can make one dress a day, and I'm going to be taking orders. Anyone that wants to take a slot, if you don't take a slot now, I can't do anything for you again. This is kind of like excellence and principles you should have with your business. Be able to say no, say thank you, and be able to plan around what do I expect in the future and how can I meet demand in the future.
Wow, thank you for that. So we'll just dive quickly into questions. This question goes to Dr. and Mr. Fala. It says, as an entrepreneur, are there opportunities we should look at that that are being created in the midst of these uncertainties? It can be any sector. So I think somebody is asking, what are the opportunities that have been opened up that we can seize?
Um, so, like Doctor mentioned earlier, he said some economies will come down and then some will rise, right? I think one thing that it's important in the short term right now is first of all health. Everyone is thinking about their health. Everyone is studying about their health, and so therefore that can be a sector, right? But again, I'll come from a point of view. I'm not from a perspective where people should go into sectors that they aren't passionate about or they are not skilled or knowledgeable about. But even at that, yes, you might want to invest. And so I'll just mention a couple of them that, yeah, looks like could be distant. Online education will also become really very big. People are started seeing that you can do a lot with webinars, you can do a lot with video, you can do a lot with online meetings. And so therefore you can also have classes online, and a lot of people have tested it. They say the proof is in the pudding, right? And so some people have tested it and will just decide, maybe I'll keep doing all my courses continuously online. So that's another sector, online education. On that big part is going to be the consumer goods, consumer services, and everything around it, right? It's going to be restaurants, it's going to be, and again, not necessarily luxury, but food. People want to eat, people want to buy food, people want to have clothes, people want to have, not clothes, clothes, yeah? People want, but again, just consumer goods and in that consumer service sector, education, health, clothing, feeding, restaurants, supermarkets, pharmacies especially because of health again. And I think those are the kind of places that you'd be seeing a huge exponential growth coming into the next couple of months.
Yes, sir. So, would you like to?
Yeah, thank you, Fola. And it's interesting. So what I'll first of all say is that, let me tell you the honest truth. While, private equity and financial analysts, venture capitalists, they are very interested in industries and they are going to be looking at industry vertical reports. And they're likely going to say this is where the value will gravitate towards. And that's the honest truth. And they are very correct. But one of the things we have to understand is that there's value everywhere.
Everywhere.
Every
Exactly.
industry has opportunities. The bottom line is, are we able to think counterintuitively or not? So look, one of the challenges we see that we have in Black Africa is that everybody wants to run to the same place. Everybody wants to run the same race. And actually, so when I did graduate studies, one of the things I understood, and incidentally, I'm a professor of strategy today. The truth of the matter is that strategy is not trying to run the race faster or better. Strategy is about choosing to run a different race. And so if you really look at what we do around here, a lot of people are still running, everybody's running towards oil and gas. Everybody's running, and then, there was a time it was stock markets, and everybody will run there. Look, by the time that information is in the public domain, it's already late. You're already a laggard, because the early ones are the ones that actually go make it. The market is tanking. But the people who will actually have enduring businesses are those who are able to think counterintuitively. And I say there's no business, no endeavor, no industry under the sun today, actually, including hospitality and travels, because that's one industry that we think is really seriously hit, because air travels are going to be hit heavily, hotels are going to be hit heavily. But I guarantee you that if you are able to think in a different manner, you might be able to value that you can create in the midst of these challenges. Because in truth, we are human beings, we are social animals, and there's that need for human beings to want to socialize. So the truth of the matter is, people are going to be looking for solutions to give them capacity. Look at what we're kind of doing today. Initially, people would have said it's not possible to have meetings. I don't know how many people are on this platform. Perhaps there are so many, in hundreds or thousands. But we're having this meeting. The same thing can happen if one is able to think counterintuitively.
Wow, that's powerful. Thank you, sir. I think this question is for you. It says, what is the right time to invest? And again, how do you study a business or a project before investing into it?
What is the right time to invest? Again, it's always, for me, it's now, right? But then again, the other part of it is also saying that when you have enough, one of the principles of wealth management is you should always have an emergency fund, or you should always have enough for a couple of months before you invest, especially when you're investing in things that might not be liquid, like assets like houses or something like that, real estate, right? Again, you want to invest in something that you want to first have enough for yourself before I say now. So again, you want to invest now. That is, you want to start looking at the options of what you can invest in. And investing is a continuous process, right? And again, like I said initially, investing doesn't necessarily have to be your money. So a lot of people have been a part of businesses and have had shares being part of a team just by having the right talent for the right business. So that's also something you can be looking at in terms of how do you invest. Can you volunteer for someone else's business at its starting? Can you provide a service that can yield you some form of shares or whatnot? Then the second questions are, what do you look at when you invest in a business? Again, when I was talking about, I highlighted three things, right? Again, you can't invest in any business if the business isn't going to be open to you. You never invest in a closed book, in a enclosed business. There's something called the data room where if I'm going in as an investor, I have to be in to be able to access any information within the company that isn't extremely private or confidential. So again, that includes what revenue they've made in the last couple of years. That includes the cost that they made and things like that. But more importantly, what I look at is, what problem is this business solving? I can look from outside. What problem is this business solving? How do I see the market? How many players are in there? What's the competition? Again, you can use tools like Five Forces, Potter's Five Forces, to kind of understand the industry and understand where that business is in that industry. Then again, you look at the team. Who are the people that are working together? What relationships has this person been able to leverage that they might be able to grow the business? How are they in communication with their mentors or with people who are supposed to give them advisory? Then the last thing is, what are their plans? What's the future like for them? What are they planning to do in the future? Again, another thing that I noticed, I think it was just yesterday, someone forwarded a platform that was supposed to help help investors track new business. Because one problem that investors have found is when you invest in someone's business, they now don't give you any information. You start to chase the entrepreneur around looking for, how much have you now made? What is going on with the investment I've made? Again, that's a huge problem that we've seen, or we know that people do. You start to have a lack of information. Again, it's creating those systems to be able to get information. It's creating those systems to be able to get data and be able to, have communication. And so that's why I said, right from the early stage, you can already have that habit. You can already have that disposition to give information, to have information that someone can rely on. How much are you making? How much is how many people have been employed under you? Again, those are things that we, from day one, we track as a company. In companies we invest in, we make sure they are tracking, or we are aware about, and we try to, create that monitoring, communication between both companies to allow for growth and strategy.
Wow, that's interesting. So, Doctor, I have a question for you, sir. This is a bit direct to precise financial services. Like, what, maybe you can give us examples. I'm actually looking for examples here. Particular challenges you faced and how you overcame them and continue to grow.
That's a very serious question. Well, first of all, the name of the company is Precise Financial Systems. It's not a financial services company, it's a software house. My life is, well, which is basically the life of every leader, and I'm not just talking about entrepreneurship, is a life of challenges. 2 minutes before I came into this meeting, I was on a conference call with my colleagues dealing with some issues. But okay, so let me give you one very interesting challenge that might go down well with a lot of the people. My business, actually, we started the business 20, a bit over 26 years ago. On the 1st of March 2020, we turned 26. When we started the business with about $50. It actually was, in that time, was 8,250 naira was all the capital that we had, home and abroad. All right. And I say that since that day till today, nobody has given us money. And we've grown. How did we do that? Well, serendipities, the hand of God, maybe through good planning, maybe through good foresight. The big issue is, how do you take on that you want to be a major software house with such little resources when you have established players like Oracle, like SAP, like just name them, huge major corporations in the world? How do you handle that? It's a fight of David and Goliath. And so the first thing we had to do was self-belief. We had to actually, first of all, believe in ourselves. And we were lucky, my partner and I, Philip. We were lucky because we had worked in the banking industry. I was in the bank. I was the chief information officer of the merchant bank where I was working in. And it had given me some insight into how the big players sell solutions. And when I would look at some of the solutions that they presented, I knew we could do better. And that was what gave us the passion. And that follows from what Fola also said, that you want to do something that you are probably passionate about. Because when we look at capital, I'm not going to look at capital directly from the way many capitalists would look at it. Because most of the people, when you look at economic definition of capital, they say business needs 4 factors of production: land, labor, capital, and entrepreneurship. And when they talk about the capital, they talk about money. But I look at capital in a triangular form. I look at intellectual capital, which is very important for the kind of things I do. I look at emotional capital, which is the capital that keeps you going when people think you cannot go further. They think you're actually mad. But you know that you are doing the right thing. That is what makes you different from every other person. That's what it calls passion. And then the last bit of the capital triangle is financial capital, which is money. So those 3 things are very important. And so we have lots of intellectual capital. First of all, we built ourselves up having worked in the bank, having seen some of these challenges. And up till today, I still keep learning. There's no year. Actually, even I don't know what's going to happen, whether this is going to happen already this year. I'm already going for 2 courses in the US. I've already registered for them. Every year, there is no year that will pass that I'm not in the classroom to learn new things. And I do that for everybody that works with me. And so the other thing we had to do was, how do you spin? Because you see, the narrative is very important. So lots of people would want to believe that, oh, Black people are never able to succeed in running software houses. And then we ask, why can't Black people succeed? We went to the same schools. I went to Harvard. And I know those in my class. They know, we all know our positions in class. We were in class with all these people, and they know what their positions are. So why can't we do the same kind of business that they do? This is something that we need to really do. How do you frame what you do? And so what we had to do was frame our business differently. And what we had to do was to turn the table around and say that, yes, while the global players are doing something, we have local knowledge. We have local supports. And that changes the game a lot of times. So while they are coming with their might in terms of client references, in terms of experience over the years, we come from a different standpoint. Like I told you, strategy is not running the race better, but running a different race. We cannot defeat them using their own coins. We have to define the playing ground separately. And we said, listen, it's not about whether they have so many references or not. It's about, do they have local knowledge? It's about, do they have local support? And it's happening today. Look, if something really goes wrong with many of the systems that people are running in Nigeria today, because a number of the applications come from abroad, they are in trouble. But we are here. And so these are the kind of things that we have seen. How does a small company begin to play in the big league? It requires tenacity. It requires strategy. And using strategy, I mean strategy in choosing to run a different race and not trying to run the race faster or better. Thank you.
Wow, that is very, very insightful. Tenacity, strategy, knowing where to run, not just running, because you can be running 100 kilometers per hour and you still not get to Lagos if you're running in the right direction. So that's really, really insightful. So I think we've come to the end. So we'll just take final words. Mr. Fola, can you give us a final word?
Again, thank you very much for the opportunity. Like I said, look at the problems, create a plan. Again, we need to have a culture shift towards doing things in the right way. Again, that's one of the things that we started when it started Pristine Capital. It's looking at socially conscious businesses that are, apart from financial growth, they're also doing something responsible for their communities, also being part of communities and growing that. Again, be undaunted. In this period, it might be tough, things might seem hard, but then remember that out of hardship comes growth, out of hardship also comes joy. Things will get better. There is no need to be down about things now. This is the time to actually sow in your emotional capacity, so in your intellectual capacity, and as things begin to shift in the world again, you'd start to see financial and even just general growth. Again, thank you very much, and I really appreciate the opportunity to speak a part of my mind and experience. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Fola. Dr. Yelisa.
Well, thank you very much again for the opportunity. And Fola, thank you very much for sharing the platform, for giving me the opportunity to share platform and knowledge as well with you. It's really, really been a very great pleasure. So my closing remarks is that there's a maxim, and it is the honest truth, that challenges and opportunities are two sides of the same coin. And so there's a way we can look at Africa and say, oh, you see the problem with Africa, we are underdeveloped. Our healthcare is underdeveloped, our education is underdeveloped, our agriculture is underdeveloped, our infrastructure, everything. But the very honest truth, within the underdevelopment creates the biggest opportunities for us. These are opportunities for us to create wealth. It's about having the right strategy. Because if we choose to put the development of all these things in the hands of foreigners, then I'm afraid we will be in big trouble. But should we choose to use the opportunity to develop ourselves as a people, then we will be solving major problems, at least two. One, we will be developing and moving from third world gradually to first world. Secondly, we'll be creating wealth and capacity. Because if you look at it today, I mean, it's really very terrible. Anything that happens in the world, Africa is always going and begging, always looking for aid, foreign aid. When is it ever going to happen that something will happen and the rest of the world will turn to Africa for succor? And we say we don't have capacity to do it. I think we have capacity to do it. And I think now is the right time to do so. The second thing I would say, and I think Fola pointed it out, is that this is a time to understand the power of cash. Cash, as much as possible, should not be spent on frivolities. Cash should be kept and invested in only things that one can be sure is likely to create value in the future. Thank you very much.
Wow, thank you, Sals, for accepting the invitation to speak. A lot of questions, a lot of people are watching on YouTube, Facebook, MIXLR, via the website, and it has been very, very insightful. We've learned to understand how the environment works, how we can take opportunities, tenacity, knowing what to do, knowing things, knowing how to do the things at the right time as well is very important. It's also that we're in this stage of COVID-19, so we employ everybody to stay safe, stay healthy, and follow the guidelines accordingly as the government has put up. One more thing, they are asking how they can reach out to you. I think your companies, people who want to do business with you. So I think uh, how can people access your company, Mr. Fowler and Dr. Yele, in terms of seeing how they can do business with you? I think that question has been coming up. So I think your websites are there, and you can follow them on LinkedIn, and then reach out personally to them and follow up. And just as you said, integrity, honesty, and trustworthiness is also very important. So we bring to a close this undaunted season opportunities and it's been very insightful, sir. Dr. Yele Okeremi. Thank you, sir, for honoring our invitation. Thank you, sir. The insights are really, really powerful. Really, I have so much written down here as you were speaking. And Mr. Folajomi, it's been like you just really blew the waters out with your answers to questions and your insights. Thank you, sir. So before I close, your, do you permit us to share your website to viewers online?
Oh, yes, please.
Yes,
Oh, yes,
please.
please do. Please
Okay,
do. Yes.
all right. Please, can you just say it out so people will follow?
Okay, so my website, actually, people can look for yeliokeremi.com. That's my personal website, and that's easy to deal with. I can handle that. But my company is www.thepfs.biz. www.thepfs.biz. That's but my private website is yeleokeremi.com. And I'm on Twitter. If anyone wants to follow me on Twitter, Okeremi Yele.
Thank
And
you,
of
sir.
course, I'm also on LinkedIn. Yes, please.
Interesting, sir. Thank you, sir. Mr. Fala, how can they reach you?
You can reach me on any social media platform. That's Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. Our website is www.pristinecapital, with pristine without the E. That's PRISTIN capital.com. I write on Medium with my name, Folajomi Adegbulugbe. I have a couple of articles around business and also just some thoughts and random musings as well, and so that you can also read on. Yeah, I think that's pretty much it for now.
Thank you for the time and the opportunity given. So we bring to a close this afternoon session of Undaunted Season Opportunities. Once again, thank you, Dr. Yele, and thank you, Mr. Folajomi. Thank you so much, sir. Thank you
Thank
for
you.
having me. All
Thank
right.
you. God bless.
Okay.
Jesus. We bless your name. We worship you. We hail you. Come on, hail Master Jesus. We hail you. We hail you. Most High. We hail you. We bless your name. We hail you. We hail you. We all know you. We hail